Well, to be honest with you, I just walked around the block and recorded with my telephone. Always an iffy adventure, that, in terms of audio quality. In order to produce an explanation for these spectating and speculating videos, of which this will be the 32nd. And I finally decided to ask myself, well, why are you doing this? So anyways, go check that video out. I'm going to call it Spectating and Speculating Intro. You know? But anyways, I don't want to spend too much time on that. No. And, oh, by the way, in that video, you get to see all my notes that I, take pictures of. I put X's in the boxes when I've completed a video for a particular thing that I thought was worth talking about at some point. And, we use TP for Kleenex around here. Unscented. Anyway, today I'm going to talk about 5 smooth stones. 5 smooth stones. In the story of David and Goliath, which I love because it's a Nephilim story, okay? Everybody knows the basics. Everybody who's been taken to church as a child knows the basics, or ought to. But other people might know the basics just because they sat in a barber shop or a dentist's lobby, waiting room, and picked up what was a ubiquitous thing in those places when I was a kid. You would see a Bible, and often the illustrated children's Bible with the pictures, right? That's where I first saw Lot's wife, pillar of salt for disobedience. That's the first place I saw 2 lions with manes walking into the ark, and I'm like, I don't think this is going to work. As a kid, like, where's the mom? That's where I saw a picture of David and Goliath was big and kind of ugly looking, right? Dave was just a little kid like me. Adam and Eve. And an extremely abbreviated bit of information about Jesus Christ. But truly, I think that's enough for anybody to come to faith if they think about it. And if somebody introduces the gospel to them in a way where they understand it's a choice, right? But what I didn't know until I got much further along in my study of Nephilim and way deeper into Jewish commentaries on the David and Goliath battle. It wasn't even a battle. It was some sass back and forth, preceded by David pointing out the lack of faith in the one God that Saul and his military had when confronted with something large, materially large, just like Joshua and Caleb, right? They go and scope out the promised land. They should have just come back and said it's all good. But they brought back these giant grapes, like basketball-sized grapes. And while Joshua and Caleb said, look at this. We haven't had wine in how long? But the other spies that had gone in with those 2 guys were scared to death, like the majority of people are when they see something materially large. They're scared of it, right? All these different people in Israel are in and out of faith because they're scared of something material, either not having it or scared it's big enough to deal them a fatal inconvenience, right? If you hang out with the multitude is going to affect you. In a lot of my videos, you'll see a thing pop up somewhere. And it says, we are each the average of the 5 people we spend the most time with. So marry wisely, because that's one of them. And if you have trouble raising your kids, it's because they have the same weaknesses as you. And we don't like to see the things we don't like about ourselves in other people. So anyways, David goes and Saul and his armies are just scared to death. And over there, the Philistines, the Palestinians, right? The future Palestinians. That's why Rome called that part of Israel the Palestine area. It was after the Philistines. It's just a phonetic change, okay? These Philistines are sassing Yahweh. They're taking a dump on God with their words. And they think it's real funny. I've seen preachers right here in Eden do the same thing without even knowing they were doing it. Right? Every time they propped up some stupid idol to get everybody's attention. Oh, did you see the game on Monday night? Oh, we have this great Christmas service coming up. You'll laugh, you'll cry. Oh my God, it's going to be fabulous. What a worship experience we will deliver to you. You will worship what we tell you to. It's going to be so exciting. It's going to almost feel like you're getting saved. How about that monkey that put gold glitter in his air conditioning system during a service and turned on the AC and it came out over to people sitting there, and he was like, oh, it's the Shekinah glory of God blessing our church. And they believed it. And then they went on to talk about, this is how our church grew. Showmanship is not in the Bible. Truth is in the Bible. Everything you add to that is baloney. Bells and whistles, smoke and mirrors, flat screen TVs, and amplification. You better believe that with no microphone, through God, you're going to be loud enough to reach 1,000 people in a room. Because he can do that, if you got something to say. You don't need a mic, you don't need speakers. Stop it. Maybe you can't be loud enough because there is no Holy Spirit breathed into your lungs. That when it comes back out with truth and the word, it goes to every ear in the room. Because it's not by the power of your diaphragm that it gets there. You still smoking, Brett? Yep. Yep, I am. Tobacco is not mentioned in the Bible. Being drunk is. So be quiet. Probably. Pharmakia is also mentioned in there, and you guys can shut up too. David isn't having it, what the Philistines are saying. It's like someone talking about your mama or your children. You bow up. Can't stop. The hair on your back goes up if you're like me and have hair on your back. Them's fighting words. And David says, let me go out there, King Saul, and take care of that clown. And his own brothers are mocking him out. Hey, you skinny little punk. Go back to your scrawny sheep. Get out of here. You ain't worth a damn. Why were they saying that to this kid? He's coming up there and being brave. Why were they saying that to him? Because David was born illegitimately. He was a bastard, to use the word in the Bible. His daddy had horsed around outside of marriage, and King David, the infant that would grow to be King David, was the result of that. And he got the red-headed stepchild treatment all through his childhood from these mean-ass, idolatrous older brothers who thought they were all that because they're up close to King Saul. Think about the 21st century. This stuff still goes on. Not just here, all over the place. The strongman image. But they're usually really, truly a wuss. When the rubber hits the road, they get a flat tire. David, he had puncture-proof tires. Anybody remember that French card game, Milborns, where the objective is to drive the farthest, but there's these flat tires and various kinds of things that can happen, car crashes and stuff along the way that can slow you, speed limits and emergency vehicles and stuff like that. But then there's other cards, like somebody plays a flat tire on you. If you hold the puncture-proof card, you can play that and cancel their injury, right? David was puncture-proof until pride got into him later on. Pride and insecurity as an adult. He started counting horses and chasing chicks and doing all this other stuff that kings do. Where Solomon came by that harem mentality real honestly. David says, let me go deal with that guy. Me and God is a majority. I can't listen to this anymore. Don't you hear what he's saying about our God? The God? And then David explains, I'm taking my sling, and I'm really good with this thing, all right? I'm a shepherd, all right? There are animals of prey that like to kill sheep. I've killed a lion, I've killed wolves, and walked away without a scratch. I could use this thing. And what goes without saying is, and your guys with swords are all standing around wondering, what can I use against this big guy? And David says, I got this sling and 5 smooth stones, which is the name of the title of this talk. I learned about the 5 smooth stones with deeper study. Okay? I want my lamp to be full of oil. There's no telling when, right? Not everybody's going to live until the rapture happens. Some of y'all might get hit by a city dump truck while working for a power company at an intersection. And go to your reward way sooner than you thought you were going to. Way sooner than your wife and kids thought you were going to. Five smooth stones. Why did he pick up smooth stones? In one of the commentaries, they say David was walking along and he was going over a brook or a creek or something, and he picked up 5 good smooth stones and stuck them in his pocket. When I was a kid, I used to horse around with slingshots. And if you were aiming at something, the conventional wisdom was to use a stone that was kind of sharp, right? Because you'd think it would injure the target. A bird, for example, or a squirrel. More than a smooth rock would. That was the conventional wisdom. But David chose smooth stones. So he knew something about what happens to the trajectory of the stone can be affected by its shape. And just like a lot of cars are streamlined, so too is a smooth stone. It's more likely to go in the direction you point it. Smart guy. He had, by doing things, acquired information. Then he tested the information, like Berean people do when they're preached at. They go back to the Bible to see whether the information is true. And if it is, now that's knowledge. That's actionable information, for good or bad. Now he gets to take it to the wisdom place. He's a triple threat, right? He knows how to listen and read and receive information, how to discern whether it is knowledge or baloney, fluff, chaff, tares, thorns. All of those things are bad things that it's good to know that you stay away from that stuff. But you can also learn how to make a very nice milkshake by experimenting, and that's knowledge too. Wisdom is when you take that knowledge and apply it in a situation that might require some other knowledge that you've acquired in order to achieve an objective. He took 5 smooth stones. Why 5? I don't know. A pentagram has 5 points on it. Baphomet, the head of the goat, is a 5-pointed shape, right? Baphomet has many names. But what I'm thinking is he was just thinking that the smooth stone, the center of gravity of a round thing is right in the middle of it if it's solid. And he probably thought this would have a better penetration as well as going where you aim it. I don't know why he took 5. Maybe he figured he'd need to throw more than one, to get the kill shot. He only needed 1. He just reached in his pocket. He didn't fool with him or nothing. He just reached in, pulled 1 out. Put it in his sling after some trash talking, like you see in the ring, mixed martial arts and boxing and all that. And then he wung that stone, and it says that it hit Goliath in the forehead, listen to this, and embedded deeply. Right? That's brain damage, Bubba. That's a bullet to the forehead, all right? With the old weaponry. Goliath keeled over and he was dead. And you can bet that all them Philistines, some of whom were probably pretty big people on their own, they headed for the hills. They were scared of this kid. He took down their warrior, this massive dude. I don't know how big he was. You don't have to go to Bible sources to find articles about really, really large human remains that have been found all over the world, and especially in America, in places that are now kind of fenced off. But big people is a definite reality in the past, no doubt about it. Big, scary-ass looking people of all kinds. And David lopped off his head with his own sword, and I believe that skull was left there to be picked clean, by birds and stuff. You find that kind of imagery in the Bible a lot, that the fallen evil dead, shout out to Sam Raimi, are going to be food for wildlife. And that's when jealousy and envy enters the picture with Saul. And we realize that what the people wanted, a king like everybody else had, was a stupid idea. But here we are, we got kings now. Thank goodness David became king after that, right? The root of Jesse. 5 smooth stones. It occurred to me that if one carries with them in their mind 5 proving scriptural elements that you find yourself needing to go back to a lot with people that have been deceived, those might be your 5 smooth stones. Their aim is true. Shout out to Elvis Costello. And I can say that the parable of the sower, the parable of the foolish virgins, the way that Daniel, Isaiah, and Ezekiel, and definitely Jeremiah, and the rest of the prophets too in ways, are talking about today. And that we're in the time when knowledge shall increase. And people will go to and fro. And I've seen that interpreted in a bunch of ways. Well, now we have airplanes and jets and stuff. People get to go on scenic flights up into the stratosphere, if they know Jeff Bezos or Elon Musk. Yeah, people are definitely going to and fro. We've been going to and fro since people had feet. It's easier to go to and fro now. But anyone who's ever done any kind of research, real research, where you've got a number of texts before you that you are going into, to find supportive data in pursuit of some kind of intellectual goal, right? Some place that you're studying in. You're going to and fro amongst authoritative sources, with books, with documents, with real photograph documentation of stuff. That kind of stuff, those are smooth stones. Irrefutable proof of something is a smooth stone. And I believe that if you could just carry around 5 proofs, and that you continue your conversation with the author of that stuff about its meaning and ask for some deeper comprehension with it, you'll get it eventually, if you're supposed to. Take those 5 scriptural smooth stones out. Scripture doesn't physically injure a person. It removes their pride momentarily. Or exposes it. It depends on how they roll in real time when the scripture comes out. They might interrupt you. They might get mad. They might, as one female teacher once said to me, "Don't give me that Bible crap," when she was transgressing against me and I was pointing out that she was doing exactly that. And this was a lady that the church she went to allowed her to be in control of access to the children's church wing of the church, where the doors were locked. Which is to say that if a parent were in the adult service in the big sanctuary and their child had a tummy ache that morning, but they seemed pretty okay, but you're wondering how they're doing, and it's eating you, so you want to go ask your child how they're doing, just check on them. You could not. They would not let an adult back there. They would bring the child to you. Don't hear what I'm not saying, okay? If you're inferring something, you didn't get it from me. But it's weird that someone that doesn't like to be handed sound doctrine in real time is given that much trust over the children of other people. I gave her a smooth stone and she threw it back at me. Oh, it's so good to be retired from education. Whenever I meet another teacher who's retired, one or the other of us says something like, there is no happier retired person than a retired teacher, right? In the same way that I've often said, there's no happier parent than a parent who has kids that are all gainfully employed, possess their own vehicles, and are able to make rent and eat and feed themselves every single month. It's the greatest, right? To have children that aren't dependent on you in the ways that they were, before they were 8 years old. They put away childish things, and they make you proud by just being able to handle what life throws at them. And by the time they come over to say hey, they've got funny stories to share, right? And they're still doing okay. All right, well, I'm running out of steam here. To be honest with you, I almost am beginning to enjoy the editing process. I'm telling you, a couple of videos ago, I woke up early in the morning. Sometimes I'm like, okay, God, let me get a cup of coffee first. And I get up early and I'm propelled into some sort of editing evolution. I had one that lasted almost 9 hours. I did stop to eat in the middle of it, and I kept drinking water all through it, but I was just being given everything I needed for about 8 hours. It was amazing. Like if I was trying to remember something in Scripture, I had a window open on the computer with a Google search bar in it just to kind of go find stuff so I could grab an image or a quote, right, or take a screenshot or something. I mean it, for 8 hours, it was effortless to find every single proof I needed to fulfill the argument I was making. And it was a pretty long video. It might be the longest one I've made. And I was talking about the dark church. It's exhausting to be given that much knowledge so quickly, right? Be careful what you wish for. What was it, five, six videos ago, I said something like, one of the most enjoyable things to do at my age is learn things. And I was even saying that when I was trying to make the audio for the intro to this S&S series here. I love learning things, but even that can be, exhausting to the point where you're like, I feel like I gotta lay down. It becomes like almost like something that is physically it has gravity. And you're at the point where you need to take a nap and let your brain sort those things into the folders it ought to be in before you wake up and start talking to people and have more stuff coming your way. When God tells me to lay down, go take a nap. Or just go lay in an air-conditioned room and stretch your back out for a little while. Take a break. I do. Just as sure as when he says, you've been thinking about going somewhere and doing such and such, don't you dare do that. Don't you even think about it anymore. And I try to stop. What are your 5 smooth stones? Is this the first time I've ever asked a question that might be answered in the comments section? I don't get comments. I don't get likes. No, people watch my stuff and leave no trace of that they were there. But in the analytics, it'll say 280 people watched this video. I'd like to hear from people that are, you don't have to believe what I believe. I hope you don't feel threatened by it. Really, this is about me, my family, and the people that I know who think they believe what I believe. Really, that's the audience I'm aiming for. And anybody else who's here, the shoe probably isn't going to fit. You may be bored by all of this, and that's okay, you know. The people for whom the shoe fits, when I'm talking about 5 smooth stones, for example, they're not going to comment. Why? Because they live within a half mile of me. They sure don't want to raise their head up above the water. Sometimes I see the tip of the snorkel, right? And I go, oh, it's you. Through something, you know, an interaction or something. Oh, you saw that video? Oh yeah, I did. Well, next time, say hey in the comments, so I know you were there. Anyways, what are your 5 smooth stones? Parable of the foolish virgins, parable of the sower, parable of the talents, and some end days related connections between the prophets and things that have happened since they said they were told this is going to happen. Watch for it. There's not many prophecies left to fulfill. 2,000 years ago, there were loads of them. Not now. Just a couple. Is Damascus a ruinous heap? Look at, I watched the Middle East news to see what's going on. They don't blur stuff out the way they do in America. You see what's going on. There ain't much standing in Damascus anymore, but it's not exactly a ruinous heap. It still appears to be a city. The Euphrates is drying up. Absolutely true. They're finding architecture they didn't know was down there, sticking out of the riverbed. Treasure hunters, party on. Okay, my dog's barking. My cat's come close to me. I think it's time for me to push stop. Have a lovely day. And I hope to see you in the long term.